Hey, welcome to Demix. In this video, we are going to learn about how we are going to writing test cases for our REST controllers. So, in the REST controllers, will be understand like how we are going to write like for the post API, for the get API, for the delete API, put API, those things. So, those HTTP APIs, how we are going to write. So, let's start. So, for writing REST controllers, there will be a mock MVC object. It is provided by Spring, like mock MVC. It is a tool provided by Spring that helps us to test our web controllers. Like it will be a REST controller, so without needing to start a real web server instead of actually running our application. So it is simulating the HTTP request like get post to our controllers and check the response like status codes or data returned in an unit test cases. So now let's go ahead and write the test cases so that it will be a better clarity. In the previous session, we have writing the test cases for our service layers, and now we are going to write for our controllers. So now if you see the packaging structure, controller is there, right? Service we have we have already wrote in the previous session. If you didn't watch, please go ahead and watch the part 3 video. Okay, let's create another package here. New package controller, right? So we are going to write for this one student controller. Let's create a class. Sorry, new class student controller test, right? Let's annotate with at the rate extend with as we are using JUnit 5 Mockito extension dot class. Okay. So what is our target class? Student controller. At the rate inject mock private student controller, right? So now this is a REST controller. This class is annotated as a REST controller. So it is nothing but an web controller. So for this one, so this API testing, we need a web server, something like that. So it will be run and we can hit the request, those things. So in Spring, it is provided like a mock MVC, like MVC controller, right? Spring MVC controller. So private mock MVC. If you see here, mock MVC object, it is provided. Now let's create the mock MVC object actually. So at the before each public void setup, we have a setup method we can write. So now we have to set up the mock MVC actually, right? To setting up the web server, all the things. Mock MVC builders dot standalone. So what is our target controller? Student controller. Let's pass here dot build. So it will create an instance and it will be give the object for us. Now let's understand what is this actually. What is this mock MVC? We have understand what is the mock MVC builder. So this mock MVC builder, it will be create an instance that setting up the mock MVC object here with only the specified REST controller. Correct. So here it is nothing but student controller. So it won't be setting up for other controllers in our application. Obviously there will be multiple controllers, but now we are writing the test cases for student controllers. So this means the dependencies like service not automatically. So okay, so creates a mock MVC builder instance that sets up mock MVC with only the specified controller, student controller. So this means that dependencies like services, repositories, and other Spring components are not automatically injected unless we have manually mocked this one, right? So if you see in student controller, we have a service injected here, right? It won't be. automatically mock. So let's inject this one so that we can mock this one, like how repository we are mocking. Get that mock of student service IO. Okay. Now let's go ahead to our controller. So first of all, there is a post API is available, right? So let's write the post API. Let's write the test cases for this create student, not create student method, create API actually, right? Now let me go to controller. Let's do this way, split, right? So that it will be easy to see both the files at one shot. Okay, let's go ahead to the student controller, split, right? Okay, let's close it here. Okay, now public void test register student, right? Mark this annotation, mark this method as at the rate test, correct? Now, so here what is the input needed for this one? Student DTO, correct? So it will be mock it here, correct? And the request body it is needed, correct? Okay, let's create this, call this method actually, student controller. So we are not going to this call this method, we have to hit this API. So by using MockMvc, we can perform, like there will be a perform method. Okay, so we will be, what is the type of method, this HTTP method? So this is a post method, correct? Let's perform a post of, why this is not coming, static import, correct? Okay, post method. Okay, then we will be pass the endpoint. For this one, we have to pass the endpoint here. So what is the endpoint? URI template. If you see API slash student slash create. Correct. This is the API endpoint. API create point. And what is the content input type is nothing but by default is JSON. So that content type application slash JSON dot application. Where is the JSON? Okay, application slash JSON. Then dot, what is the request type? Let's close this here. Okay, now is the content method. There will be a content method will become. Okay, why this content method is not coming? Post of, okay, post of this one, then coming to dot content type application slash JSON. Okay, okay, okay. Now if you see the request I have copied here, if you see content type dot content, nothing but the request body what we are going to pass. So if you observed in the first one, like when we hit the create API, we are passing the request, correct? So first name, middle name, last name, all the things we are passing. Dot value of, it will be written the first name, for example def, right? Okay. Now if you see MockMvc dot perform, so it will be hit this API. Okay. Then it will be come to this and except if you see your content request body, then the result whatever response we are getting back, and except status is created. So in the API if you see, we are returning the status as created and accept JSON path of result. So what is the result we are fetching? Dot first name as a JSON response and name also we are returning. Okay, in the postman we will be see the response also. Now, before calling here, we have to mock this method, registered student method, correct? Let's mock this one. Let me copy the student DTO object. Instead of typing here, it will take a lot of time. Student DTO, we have a set first name. Okay. Oh, it is not coming. Okay, okay, sorry. I have added in. Okay. Set first name. Okay. Now if you see, it is added student entity also I have added because the response type is nothing but student entity. Okay, object. Now let's mock it. When student service mocked object dot register student of any type of student DTO dot class. Let's import the static import. Then return student entity. Correct. Here we have created a student entity object. Now let's run it. If you see, it is passed now. Okay. Now let's see in Postman. If you see in the create API, right? Let's run the application. Let's run the application so that you will be better understand. It is started. Let's open the Postman. If you see, we have passed this request, right? For example, let me test it with a different name. If you see, the response is coming from the JSON path. If you see the first name, it is taking here. The first name, this first name, nothing but this one from the response. It is checking and comparing with this one in the response. Okay, then it will be telling like yes, the expected value is dev. Okay, so this is the post API we have done. Now let's try for student get student API. Okay, now let's stop it. Now let's copy the same thing, change the name only. Okay, test get student details. Get student details, correct? Okay. Now if you see here, mockMvc.perform mockMvc dot, this is, if you see here, student service dot student details, right? Student details we are going to mock. Let's remove this one instead of we'll be confused. The type get what is the API endpoint for this one? Details, correct? Let's put API student details. What is the content type for this one? Because here there is no content type. Why? Because there will be no body, because in the get mapping there is no body, request body. Okay, so instead of content we will be pass as param. Okay, remove this one. Dot param. Okay, param name is student ID comma what will the value. Okay, for let's pass it the student id. Let's copy from this one some student id. We can define it here class level also, some sample value also we can define it here. What will be the status? Okay, it is returning the status. Okay, let's remove this one. Okay, is okay, right? So the status will be written. Okay, student id. Yes, okay. Now if these things are not required, right? So what is the response type for this one? It will return student response dto, right? Student response dto. Let's copy this one. Student response dto, student response dto. Let's remove these things. Okay, then dto dot set message success, correct? Okay, now let's mock this one. When student service dot details of any string, any string, then return student detail, right? This object will be written. This is a mocked object. Okay, now let's run this one. This is okay. Now if you see, this one is pass. Now let's see. In Postman, the get API is here. If you see, I can give this one, and I okay. The application is not running. Let's run this application. Then hit the API. Okay, we got the response. As message success we got. Here also we did that one. Okay, set message and response. You can check the JSON path also here, not a problem. Okay, now let's write for a update API also. So this update API also, let's copy this one. Paste update student details, right? Okay, so in update student details we need like a put API, right? So let's copy this request. Okay, and remove this content. Why? Because these things we are not going to pass here. Student id is mandatory, right? To updating, we are updated by student id. If you see here, find by id, then we are updating that id, the data. Let's copy this request, sorry, this response. So this is the request body for the put API. Let's put it here. Sorry, double quote, it will put it here. Okay, so if you see here, dot put API, we have a put API. Okay, then what is the path for this one? Let's go to controller. If you see here, update. Let's stop the server, close this one now, update. Okay, now if you see, remove this. Okay, is okay, right? Update student details, student entity we have to pass, right? So let's create a, okay, let's go to student controller. Let's go to student controller. Update API, if you see, it needed in request body student entity, it will mock the student service, right? Okay, now here we can create a student entity object. Student entity object, copy student entity object, student entity. Okay, now when any of student entity dot class, okay, then return student entity object, optional of. What is it is returning? Student service, student response video it is returning, right? Student response video. Okay, let's copy the student response video object here. You can commonly also define this type of data, commonly used objects, and get this one and use it here. Student response. Okay, now let's run it. Okay, if you see it is updating. Okay, so whatever, for example, in the update functional, whatever we are updating, that updated data we will be get. Now let's test it same in post API, in the put API, sorry. Let's take this request, go to the put API. Okay, I can change it here, def 5. Okay, let's hit it. Okay, it is not running. Okay, now the application is up and running. Let's hit it. Now I want to update. Okay, some error is there. What is that error? Must not be null. Okay, and data I am missing. In get API. Okay, it is there. Student ID. Okay. In the post API, we have to copy this one. There will be some request body is mismatching actually. Okay, now it will be dev 2 to 5. See, it is updating, successfully updated. Okay, now let's run it. Student controller. Here- Now we can see the coverage of this one. Replace. Now if you see student controller 60%. Okay, so what all are that not covered yet? Let's see. This is covered. Okay, this delete API is not covered, and this get mapping, another get mapping is not covered. You people can try for this one to for more practice and learn. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like and subscribe. Thank you.